In this lecture, we will know how to install VS Code, what is VS Code, what are the prerequisites of VS Code, and how to use it. As you can see, I am now on my org. You can see that I can always use the developer console to code, to write Apex, to write VF pages, to write Aura components, and so on. But this developer console is mainly for small projects. It's not for big scale projects. So it's a good practice to install VS Code and use it. So how to do that? Let's first go to VS Code, Salesforce Extensions, and as you can see, I have a developer.salesforce.com page which has all of the tools that we need to install VS Code and use Salesforce inside it. So as you can see, this is an overview of VS Code. In VS Code, once we install it, we can after that add Salesforce Extensions Pack. This is mainly a collection of extensions that is used to connect to Salesforce. So to install VS Code, we need to install many prerequisites. To do so, let's go to Get Started. So as you can see, this is a brief overview about the installation of VS Code. It needs a Java platform to be installed, a JDK. It needs the command line interface. And then once it is installed, we have to add the Salesforce extensions for VS Code. So let's start by installing the prerequisites. We will start by the command line interface. So if you are using Mac, you have to click on this link. If you are using Windows, you have to go to that link. So let's go to Windows because I am now on Windows, and then let's get the 64-bit version. So CLI is now being downloaded. As you can see, I have two versions of it, so two files. Let's delete one and let's keep one. And now I will install it. I will just double click on it and I will choose the default and next. And now I will wait for it to be installed. Now let's move to the next prerequisite, which is the Java JDK. So let's open this in a new tab and let's see what we can install. As you can see, once we install VS Code, we have to specify within VS Code the installation of JDK because VS Code relies on the JDK. So we have different options when it comes to the JDK. We have the Adopt Open JDK, we have Zulu, and of course we have the Oracle JDK. You can install any one of these. For me, I will go to this website to install the Adopt Open JDK. So you can see that I need to select the version number 11. Of course, this might change in the future. And then I need to select the hotspot. So 11 and hotspot, and I will download it. So it's being downloaded. Let me check the installation of the CLI. It's also being installed. So now let's go to this page again and let's get VS Code. So to do so, to install VS Code, we have to go to this website and then we have to download VS Code to install. So you can see on the top right, I have the download link. Let's do so. And I am on Windows, so I will choose Windows. It's being downloaded, and let's see the command line interface. Okay, so it is done. Let me click on close, and let's install the second one, which is the OpenJDK. Make sure that you select the Java home variable and the last option, and this will install the OpenJDK. Of course, you can install Oracle or you can install Zulu. That's it. Finish. Now the last step is to install VS Code. This is the executable file. So let's click on it and let's run it to install VS Code. Okay, so now we have the three components installed. We have the command line interface, we have the Java, and then we have VS Code. Let's launch VS Code. So what we have to do now, we have to install the Salesforce Extensions Pack. To do so, we have to go to the Extensions menu, and then we search for Salesforce Extensions Pack. As you can see, this pack has these 8 extensions. It can support Apex, VF, Aura component, LWC, and so on. So let's install it. As you can see here, most of the extensions are now installed, except for 2, the Aura components extension and the LWC extension. Okay, it's now all done. Let's restart VS Code, File, and then Exit. Okay, so now we have the extensions installed. The next step is to specify the Java path. To do so, we have to know where did we install Java. So let me go back to the documentation. So as you can see here, VS Code needs the JDK to be installed, and it needs to point to the JDK installation folder. So I did install the adopt OpenJDK, and then as you can see here, I'm using Windows, so the installation folder should be something like this. Let's go to my hard disk and let's see where did I install it. Okay, so this is the installation folder. Let's copy it. Now let's go to VS Code and let's go to settings. And in there, let's search for Apex Java. So as you can see here, we have the installation folder. So this is the path to the Java JDK. So I will simply paste it there. Of course, if you are using Mac, it will be a different path, but it should be set from settings and then search for Apex Java and then search for the folder path to JDK. We don't need to save because it will be automatically saved. We don't need to do anything, so that's it. Now let's talk a little bit about VS Code. As you can see here, it's just a simple editor. It can have different extensions. You can edit, as we mentioned, any language, including Apex and Salesforce. So on the left side, the first menu item is the Explorer. This is where we have the folders and where we go to the files. And then we have the search. This will search within the files. So let's say if I need to search from inside an Apex class, I will go to this menu item. And then we have the Git. So once we install Git version control, we can use it in this menu item. And then we have the debugger. And finally, we have the extensions. Now let's connect to our org. To do so, and because we have the CLI installed, we can use it to create our first project. So to do so, we have to go to Ctrl-Shift-P in Windows, and Mac, I believe it's Command-Shift-P. Let's search for SFDX, and as you can see here, we have two create project. We have create project, and then we have create project with manifest. The create project will use a Scratch org. This is mainly for use in SFDX, and then the create project with manifest is to be used with the package.xml file. This is mainly if you have a dev org or a sandbox. So it will be a standard project because I need to maintain the folder structure, so I will choose this. It will not be empty and it will not be analytics. So the project name will be the org name, and then I will specify which folder I need to use to store the files of this project. So let's go to my PC and let's create a new folder, and then we just need to go to this folder and to click on create project. This will create another folder within the VS Code folder. So every time we need to create a new project, it will be within that folder. Let me open it. Now it should be there. So that's it, the folder is now created. Let me go back to the folder and then you can see it there. So it has the structure of a Salesforce org folder using the SFDX file structure, not the old SRC file structure. So we are opening this folder there, but we don't have any metadata yet. To do so, we have to use the package.xml file. What is this? This will tell VS Code what to retrieve from the org. So it will ask the org to get all of the metadata of this type, and this type, and this type, and so on. I can build my package.xml file, or I can use the default one. So to build my package.xml file to select the metadata components that I need in VS Code, I can go to this website. So let's go to as you can see, there is an application that is used to build a package.xml file from the org. So I can now open it, and then I can specify where I should connect, and then it will connect to the org that I am connected to in the same session. I can specify which metadata components I need, so I will only get the components that are not packaged. So this now will take some time. It will retrieve to me all of the definitions of the metadata components. So in this case, I can go back to the package.xml file that is under the manifest folder, and then I can change that. But for now, let's just use this one. Before using it, we need to authenticate to the org. To do so, we need to go to sfdx, and then we need to authorize the org. So step 1 is to create the project, which is the skeleton of the folder. Step 2 is to authorize. Step 3 is to use the package.xml file. So this will be a production environment because it's a dev org, and the name will be Walco21, and now I need to authenticate. So anytime that you see exit code 0, this is something good, which means that this task ran without any errors. Now I have a project, I have authorized an org. The next step is to use this package.xml file to get the metadata from the org that I authorized. So if I go back to Firefox, you can see this is the package.xml file from the org itself. As I said, I can come here and then I can build my own components. So let's add something. Let's say that we need to take custom objects. So in this case, we can do that. Ctrl C, and then we can add it there. So this will say that now VS Code, please connect to the authorized org and get this list of metadata. I can do something else. Some components or most of the components will accept a wildcard, so I will do that. And then I will delete all of the others. So this means that get me all of the custom objects. Okay, so let's save this one. Ctrl S. And now to get the metadata from the org, I just need to right click, and then I need to click on retrieve source and manifest from org. This will run, and this will fetch the metadata component of this package.xml file, and then it will store them in the folder there. So as you can see, if I go to Force App, main, default, classes, you can see now these are being taken or fetched from the org to here by using the package.xml file. There's a very important point. If let's say you have a brand new org and you try to do this thing here, you will have 0 components. Why? Because a brand new org doesn't have any custom component yet. So don't be surprised if you get a message saying that could not retrieve any metadata component because this is still a new org. What you can do, you can go to the org and you can create an Apex class, let's say, and then you can come here and then you can run the retrieve from this package.xml file. Okay, so now if I go to Force App, and then if I open classes, you can see that I have all of the Apex classes that I have created in the org itself listed under VS Code. Now I can go ahead and I can change, I can do anything to my classes. I can create new ones, and I can run SQL, I can run test classes, I can run anonymous Apex, and so on. So let's now see how we can use VS Code. So let's go to the org itself. Let's go to Apex classes, and as you can see, I have the same list. So the first class is account trigger handler. Let's say now that we want to edit this class from within the UI. So I click on edit. I will just add a comment just for the sake of showing, and save. Now if I go back to VS Code, you can see that if I click on the class, I don't have the latest update from the server or from the org, because this class is the local copy only. How to get the latest update? To do so, I just need to right click on the class itself, and as you can see here, we have different options. One of them is retrieve source from org. Now it will take some time, and then you can see the comment added there. Okay, now if let's say I need to do the same thing but from VS Code to the org. I did add a comment and then I saved, Ctrl S. If I go to my org and I refresh, you can see that I don't have the update. So I need to do the same, but this time it will be deploy source to org. Let's go back to the UI and F5, and now you can see that the new comment has been added. Okay, let's do other stuff. Let's go back to VS Code. Let's talk about searching. So we did say that if I need to search within the file, I will use this menu item. So let's say VFP, I have a file. Yeah. So I have a VF page that had this label. So this is searching within the file itself. If I want to search the files themselves, I can use Ctrl P. And let's say account trigger. You can see the list there. This is used if you have Git. You can install Git and then you can use Git comment, Git push, Git pull from within VS Code. This is mainly used for debugging. As I said, this is the extensions. If I need to add extensions, it will be on this menu item. This is for the test classes. I have test classes, but I need to refresh to get the latest ones from the server, and then I can run the test classes from this menu. This is the list of metadata that I got from the org. So let's say I want to get custom objects. I go to the custom objects, which is there, refresh, account, get. Now I will have all of the components of the account object listed there. So these are all under account. You can see I can get the custom fields, I can get list views, web links, and so on. Okay, so this is mainly the use of VS Code. Now let's create a new Apex class. So I can do the same from VS Code. I don't need to do this from the developer console anymore. How to do that? I can either go to the file menu, I can right click on the class, and then I can click on create Apex class, or I can simply go to Control Shift P or Command Shift P in Mac, and then I would search for Apex, and then you can see that I can also create an Apex class from this menu. Let's do that. Let's call this class lead trigger handler, and then I want it to be under this folder, and this is the handler itself. Okay, so you can see that I have the class definition. Now I can create my methods. I can create my after insert handler method and so on. I can do the same for triggers. So let's do this from the folder itself. right click and then create Apex trigger. So let's call this lead trigger. I hope I don't have this name. Triggers. Let's check. I don't have it, so. And by default, I have this. I need to specify the S object to be lead. And then by default, I have the before insert. Now I can add the different methods. So let's say if trigger dot is so as you can see, when I start typing, I have auto completion. So let's say I need to do some list, L-I-S-T. I have auto completion and I have something called snippets. So every time that you see a square, you can see that now it has pre-populated how we have to create a list, and then it has highlighted two variables. The first one is the object and then the second one is the object also. So let's say I need to create a list of leads, lead, and then I click on tab if I have another variable in this snippet, which is the list name. So let's call it LST LEAD. So this is a way to code. So if let's say I need to have a for loop, you can see I start typing for FOR, and then I have many different snippets. And then you can see the description of each one of them. I can choose any. So let's choose the first one, and then I can press on tab. See, now I have constructed a for loop without typing all of it. And now I have some variables within this snippet. So we have, this is a for each loop. So let's say for lead and then tab, L, and then another tab. Let's call this LST LEAD. So this is a way to code. So I don't need to type all of the for loop. Salesforce the extensions pack comes with some snippets, and I can also create my own. I will show you how to do that. So this is how to create a trigger and a class from within Salesforce. Once I do that, of course, I have to push to the org. And how do I do that? I just simply right click and then I choose deploy source to org. Okay. So the next thing that we have to talk about is how to invoke Soquel and how to invoke Anonymous Apex. To do so, you can see that I have a folder called scripts, and then I have a subfolder within it called Apex, and then I have an example. So let's say I need to execute these two lines or these three lines. I simply highlight them. I select Ctrl-Shift-P and I search for Anonymous. You can see that SFDX, which is from the CLI, has the execute Anonymous Apex with currently selected text. So I just need to select it or enter, and now you can see the result within that window. I can do the same for Soquel. So I can go to the Soquel folder, I can select this, or I can also create a new one. So right click, new file. So let's select the existing one. So this is the Soquel, let's highlight it and then Ctrl-Shift-P, search for Soquel and enter. I can choose which API, REST or tooling. Let's go with the REST API. And now I can see the result from within the output window. This is another thing that we can do from within VS Code. We can do all of this without the need of the developer console. Now let's talk about how to create our own snippets. So to do so, let me show you this website. So I will go to Firefox and then let's search for snippets. VS Code Salesforce. You can see that there are so many extensions that we can add, or we can create our own snippet. So let's say I click on this one, and in there you can see there are so many extensions, and we can also create our own snippets. How to do that? To do that, we have to go to VS Code, we have to go to the settings, and then we have to choose user snippets. Now let's go to Apex, because we need these snippets to be available within Apex. And you can see we have now an example that we can follow, or we can create our own. For example, I have this snippet. You can see that the different part of it, first of all, we have the name of the snippet. This will not show. And then we have the prefix. This is what we start typing for the snippet to show. And then we have the body of the snippet. So if I do that and save, now if I go back to Apex, and let's say I need to add this on the top, I start typing AUTH. You can see I have the auth snippet. Why I have this? Because if I go back to the apex.json, you can see that the prefix A is AUTH. So going back there, I just need to click on tab. Now you can see that everything that was defined in this snippet is now added to this class. On top of that, you can see that there are variables. So you can see that I have everything is static except for this. This is mainly variables that we need to add once we add the snippet. So let me go back there and let me add it again, and you will notice what will happen. So AUTH tab. Now you can see that this author is highlighted. So if I can start typing, it will come there. Now if I choose tab, it will go to the next variable. Let's say date here. Okay, so this is the way to create snippets. We can follow this example. So we have to specify the name. We have to specify the prefix. This is mainly what we have to start typing for us to have the snippet. And then once we select tab, the body of the snippet will be displayed. And then from within the body, I can specify variables. So the variables are the ones that will be highlighted. And then I can start typing to fill this variable. After typing, I need to press on tab to go to the next variable. This is just a small example, and as you can see here, I have the description. This is mainly what we get once we start typing AUTH. This is the description that I told you about. So click or tab. This is highlighted. Another tab, I will go to the next variable. Okay, I will share this in the resources section of this lecture so that you can do your own snippets. But Salesforce comes with so many snippets. So for loop, I think there are 3 or 4. So if I start typing FOR, you can see it's more than that. So if I go to FORR and then tab, you can see that this is another version of for loops. If I, let's say, go FOR and then I select the first one, this is the for each. If I go to FORI tab, this is another type of for loop. Okay, so this is mainly the use of VS Code. I recommend that you use it instead of the developer console to get used to it. Let's say you want to connect to more than one org at a time. It's so easy. Ctrl-Shift-P and then SFDX. You can see that I have the options on the top. Create project with manifest, and then let's say standard. Let's say org2. Now we have to specify the folder. So we have all of our orgs inside the VS Code folder. So I will choose this folder and click on create project. Now, if I go back to the VS Code folder, you can see that a new folder will get created for the new org, and then it will have the skeleton of the files and the folder structure. Now, because once I create a project, I need to move to that project. Let's say that I don't want to save because I have so many files that I have created without saving. Now, VS Code will open the new project. Now, if I go back to the folder, you can see that org2 has been created with a blank structure of folder. So if I go to force app, main, default, classes, nothing is there. Now the second step is to Ctrl+Shift+P, and then I need to authorize. So let's go to SFDX, and then I need to authorize an org. Once I do that, I will log in to an org, and then I need to build my package.xml file. Again, we can use the Heroku application to do so, or we can use the default one, and then we can switch between these two. And finally, to just confirm that once you have a new org without any metadata, and then you use the package.xml to retrieve the metadata, don't be surprised if you don't get any metadata component, because again, this is a brand new org without any metadata. So what you need to do, you just need to go and create some metadata on the UI or through the developer console, and then retrieve the metadata components again.